The Thieves Guild. Written by Jake Kerr. Voice characterizations by Korak the Bard. Episode 1. In the Shadow of the Wall.
The glorious autumn sunset provided a stark contrast between the stern guard in the light on the stone wall above and the two boys in the shadows on the ground below. Ralan grinned as he looked up and watched as the guard paused in his rounds. It was too perfect. He and Raef were standing next to a pile of tomatoes, and the guard stood still, looking out onto the plains, his back an easy target with its white armor and robes shining brightly. With Ralan and Raef in the shadows, they could easily flee unseen. Of course, he had to convince Raef to throw the tomato at the guard first. Ralan kicked his friend in the heel and pointed at the guard.
I bet you could hit him from here.
Raef looked up.
The guard?
Of course the guard.
Raef stared at the guard for a moment, but then turned away.
No, he's too high, and I can barely see his shoulders behind the battlements.
He's not even moving.
Ralan started juggling the tomatoes. He tossed one to Raef, who caught it with his right hand.
Come on, don't be a coward. He's 30 feet up. Besides, he won't leave his post to chase someone who just threw a tomato at him.
Raef started walking away.
No way, Ralan. The last time I took one of your challenges, Captain Edgar whipped me so hard I couldn't sit for a week.
Ralan grabbed Raef's arm.
I can understand being afraid of Captain Edgar, but a member of the White Guard...
Raef stopped and turned. He was scowling. Ralan had touched a nerve.
Why do you want me to hit the guard so badly?
Because it's fun.
Raef still looked unconvinced.
And it's a member of the White Guard. Have you forgotten last Founder's Day?
Ralan glanced back over his shoulder at the guard still standing with his back to them, his white robe blowing in a slight breeze. When Ralan returned his gaze to Raef, his friend was staring at the guard.
I think the least you owe them is staining one of their white robes.
Raef's eyes widened. He had been beaten by 3 off-duty white guards during the previous Founder's Day when he was caught painting the statue of Elias, the founder of the Night Guild, a garish red. Raef looked at the tomato and then the guard. He was clearly debating payback. Ralan made sure not to remind Raef that it was Ralan himself who had egged him on to that mischief as well. Raef looked at the guard, tossed the tomato up in the air, and caught it.
I could hit him.
Of course you could. And look.
He pointed along the base of the wall and into some shadows. The pile of smashed tomatoes that had oozed down from where they had been practicing tosses for the Founder's Day parade was already hard to see.
You can run that way. He'll never see you that close to the wall, and it's dark all the way to the highway.
Ralan realized he was very close to getting his friend to toss the tomato.
And I'll run this way.
He pointed across the field toward the river in the distance.
He'll see me, and I'll draw his attention. You'll be long gone, and by the time anyone gets to the bottom of the wall, I'll be across the river.
Raef looked around and nodded.
Give me another one. I might miss with the first.
Good thinking.
Ralan tossed Raef another tomato. He almost couldn't contain his glee. He really liked Raef, but it was just too easy to get Raef to do his mischief for him. And in the end, that's what it was all about. Doing maximum mischief with minimum risk.
Wait until I hit him, and then you run towards the river.
Ralan nodded. He hadn't lied to his friend. There was practically no way they could get into trouble. No one was remotely close to them, and the lengthening shadow of the wall made escape a foregone conclusion. Raef pulled his arm back and then paused. He looked at Ralan.
I wish the Guildmaster Knight rode in the cage during the Founder's Day parade. I'd shower him with garbage from beginning to end.
Ralan was taken aback by his friend's bitter tone, which hinted at restrained fury.
Well, with Guildmaster Pietro dead, you never know.
Pietro was the late Guildmaster thief, who would ride in the Founder's Day parade while the populace would throw garbage at him, symbolically abusing him for the sins of thieves. Raef ignored his comment, turned, and launched the tomato with his right hand. There was a thud, and Ralan enjoyed the moment. As Raef took off running, a large red stain spread over the back of the guard's cape. The guard looked down at his feet and then over the battlements toward where Ralan stood. Ralan could see the guard's face and caught his eye for a moment. He then sprinted for the river. As expected, the guard didn't raise an alarm. Still, Ralan took care to turn down a few alleys between the wall and the river. Near the docks, he stopped and bent over, panting for breath with his hands on his knees. He glanced around the riverfront as he stood back up. The only activity was the hustle and bustle of the shops preparing for the night in boats of every size ushering people up and down the river. Ralan smiled and walked downriver to the Merchant Guild slip. He had gotten away with it.